a quote that I heard one time is the church is not a museum for good people, it is a hospital for the broken. Like, that's the great thing about God is God doesn't want you because you're perfect. He wants you because of who you are. It's so worth pushing through all the hardships and the tribulations to have that relationship with God. It really is worth it. And he loves you the way that you are. Okay, so hi, I'm Faith. I am a freshman here at UMD. I am a journalism major. Some things about me that I like to do. I love writing. I write for a sports desk here, so I'm a really big sports fan. I really like anything that involves being outside. I love hiking, running, anything I can go outside with friends and do. I also really like music, and yeah, I'm really excited to be here.
Yeah, it's great to have you. What are your favorite teams?
Favorite teams, I am a huge hockey fan, so I'm a diehard Washington Capitals fan. Go Caps. On the other spectrum for football, I'm a huge Chicago Bears fan. I'm growing into it, but so go Caps, go Bears. That's about it.
How about music? What's your favorite artist?
Ooh, favorite music artist. I really like anything indie. So I like anything indie calming vibes. So I like Noah Khan a lot. He's kind of my go-to basically all the time. So huge Noah Khan fan.
Yeah, I love Noah Khan's music too. Definitely. Kind of like that mix between country and folk. I wouldn't call him indie, but I guess that is kind of what it is, kind of that mix
Yes.
between country and folk, I guess, folk music.
Yeah, it's perfect for the fall, especially as we're getting like transitioning. He's such good fall music. So
All right, so let's kind of transition a little bit. What is your faith experience kind of been like? Have you been religious your whole life? Is it something you kind of picked up later in life? Kind of talk a little about that.
yeah, so I grew up in a Christian family. You could probably guess by the name Faith. My parents are both Christian. I've grown up going to church every week, but I also went to a bunch of Catholic school. So I've been kind of around faith and religion my entire life, but I think I really started taking it seriously around, I'd say around 10th grade. I really started taking it more seriously and looking into myself. I'd go to a weekly church group at my church on Sunday nights and we attended this camp every summer called Never the Same Camp. And I remember going to that camp one year and just listening to music. We were listening to praise and worship music, and it all just hit me that this was where I was supposed to be, and this is what I was supposed to be doing with my life. So I think around the end of 10th grade, summer going into 11th grade, I started taking it more seriously, started reading my Bible, really looking and listening to what God was telling me while doing that. And since then, it's been a journey, like everything is, life is a journey. But I'm so glad that I have now like incorporated God deeper into my life.
That's awesome. What church do you attend?
I attend Life Point Church in Waldorf, Maryland. Shout out Life Point. I love my family over there.
What is your service kind of like? Like, what is the typical like order of the service at Life Point?
It's a pretty traditional, service. We start off with, worship music. It's about 15-20 minutes of that. Then we break down, we'll do a prayer after that. And then after that, we have a kids ministry there, which I volunteer with and I love. So we'll do a little send off for the kids and send them off to learn. And then from there, we'll break into a message or sermon. We'll usually go through different blocks of sermons. Like we'll have different sections and like different ideas we're focusing on, depending on what season of life it is, depending on like Christmas, we focus on that. Typical, we'll break down a sermon. My Pastor Michael Rogalski, great. He has a lot of life stories. So he'll tell a lot of stories and connect those to his sermon. And we'll do a lot of verse deep diving. We also all read the verses together out loud as a service, which is very fun. With like 400 people in the room. So I love doing that. And then we'll break it down, like we usually do break down a sermon, what God's trying to tell us through this, and then we'll pray it out. And anyone wants to dedicate their life that based on that day, based on that message, we'll have a moment in time for that. So yeah.
Okay, so it sounds pretty traditional. Is Life Point non-denominational, or is there a particular like sect of
We're
Christianity?
Wesleyan, which is a smaller section of Protestant Christianity. It's a smaller one, but it pretty much is open to anyone. Like you don't have to be Wesleyan to attend, obviously. Our big slogan actually over at Life Point is everyone's welcome, nobody's perfect, and everything is possible. So anyone can come.
That's awesome. I like that slogan. Anyone is welcome. Nobody's perfect. Anything is possible.
Yes, that is correct.
That's a good slogan. I like that slogan.
Hmm.
Gotta take that for my own life. That's awesome. Uh,
Yeah.
But what is the Wesleyan Church? Because I'm not really as familiar with that. I know obviously you're open, the church is open to everyone, but like, what do the Wesleyan Church? What do they kind of believe?
So it's basically like a very small section of like Protestant. It's a lot focused on like still faith, and then also like we do a lot of service. So our church is like a branch out in Haiti that we often serve, and we do missions out there, and we work with them a lot. So it's basically just a section of Protestant religion. It's not too different from much. It's just more, I'd say, like worldwide service based than other Protestants.
Okay, so I was gonna say what sets it apart. So the worldwide reach, you'd say, is that what kind of sets it apart?
Yeah, I'd say set apart for, at least from definitely from my church, we're set apart by that. Like we do, again, like I said, a lot of service in Haiti. We have open service houses in our area for local women who are going through restoration. We call them restoration houses. So we do a lot of service to the community, and we're also branched off with other churches in our area who are not all Wesleyan, but different like branches of Protestant. So we all like kind of work together with that.
Oh, that's awesome. I like the global outreach. Have you had a chance to go overseas with the church or
I
no?
have not yet. I am really looking forward to eventually doing it, but with my journalism work kind of took off a little early, so I have not had a chance to go on a mission yet, but I'm hoping to. We're doing every Christmas we do like a trip to Haiti because we make these gift boxes and we'll go visit the church in Haiti and drop everything off and like do that. And I'm hoping to get to go on one of those. It's not looking like this year, but hopefully next year.
Yeah, that would be awesome if you get the chance to go. I would like to go at some point on a missions trip myself. Because
Mm-hmm.
I think it would be awesome to see, a different perspective and learn so much. I've had friends who've gone to El Salvador and other places, and they've come back and like tell how this is the greatest experience they've had, and how everyone is so welcoming and giving. The places may not be as affluent, or definitely not as affluent as here in America, but yet they're willing to give so much more. So I would
Yeah.
definitely love to have a chance to experience that myself. So hopefully one day soon for both of us, we'll get to go overseas and see the world for ourselves. That's awesome. I want to kind of go back a little bit to the slogan of Life Point, especially that last sub point about anything being possible, because I think that's an interesting approach to life. Because I think sometimes we doubt ourselves, and at least I definitely do. We doubt ourselves. We don't think we can achieve anything. So, there been a point in your life where you kind of doubted that you could achieve something, and maybe church or faith has kind of helped you see that yes you could?
Yeah, for sure. That's a really good question. I think why I've been religious like in so long, it took me till about 2 years ago to really get into it, is because I've always struggled with doubt, where I've had hard moments in my life where I was definitely like the typical like, oh God, if they're so good, why is this happening to me? And I definitely had those moments of doubt where I hit like rock bottom and I just didn't want to keep going with it because I just didn't think God was listening to me. I feel like I was crying out and he just wasn't hearing me. But I think what really just pushed me through that moment is to keep going. Just like a lot of things in life, I would be so upset and so mad, but I'd still force myself, okay, even though we're upset, we're gonna go back and we're gonna read our Bible today. Or even if we're so upset, we're gonna listen to church music today. And I know just doing those little efforts, even when I didn't think they were doing anything, definitely helped restabilize me and keep me going throughout the process.
Yeah, doubt is something that everyone experiences. I mean, regardless if you're Christian or not, everybody, or most people I should say, have those feelings of doubt. Am I worth it? Am I able to achieve this? But I think you mentioned, I liked how you said, little things. Okay, I'm going to read my Bible today. I'm going to listen to worship music today. You're not like making a big life change. It's just a little step, which eventually will lead to a greater change. Is it
Exactly.
hard to kind of make that first step? I know it is for me.
Yeah, it definitely is, especially when you're having those really low moments. It's really hard to start. I know just in general for me, I struggle with starting in general, not just with my faith, but with like anything. If I'm doing homework, I'm the one it's like the hardest part is always starting. But I think really just a big way that like that's helped me start is having people around me to motivate me. Like community is so powerful when you're able to find it. So I'd like for me at least I'd find I had this one friend in high school named David. Shout out David. But he was also Christian and he was really really just a powerful person. He's so powerful. And I'm glad I had him there because he'd be the one who would check up on me and be like, "Oh, did you read today? Are you going to keep going with this plan? Like what's going on?" He would keep me accountable with just following up. So I think continuing the push through the hard moments of starting and having someone there to help encourage me to push through really just made a difference.
It's great to have that support system with you because again, you're as you said, I definitely relate to the starting being the hardest part, but having somebody alongside you to kind of support you and check in on you. Hey, how you doing? Are you doing what you said you would? Those things kind of, and it's not like trying to like admonish you or shame you, but just kind of checking on you because that's how we're meant to do life together and to
Mhm.
check up on each other and hold each other accountable. I'm sure David's a great person. By the way, this is kind of going back a little bit. Did your parents have any like, I guess, why faith? Why did they name you Faith?
Really just their faith in God and their like relationship, I think really just pushed through. My parents were always been heavily Christian, like, and they both were like obviously looking to marry someone who was Christian and carried those values. And I think just like when coming together, they're from very different areas. Like my dad is from like Staten Island, New York. My mom is from a small little farm area in Washington State. So they kind of always had like this faith that like it was going to work out, being from so far and coming together. And I think just their faith in God and their continue to push through like caused them to name me Faith. I mean, they didn't have any other options for names. I was always the one asking, if you didn't name me Faith, what would you name me? And they said nothing. It was always going to be Faith.
So it was always meant to be.
Yeah, so it was meant to be.
That's awesome. Yeah, it shows that your parents really had faith. Has they what did do they do anything in the church? Have they kind of like they've obviously raised you to kind of like follow in the path. Do they do any participate in anything in the church?
Yeah, so my parents, we've been in two churches, and in both they were did marriage ministry leaders. So they would help counsel younger couples who are engaged, looking to be married in the church, and kind of like help them continue through that process to continue to grow the relationship up to marriage. And my mom has also helped volunteer in sisterhood, which at a church, which is like a female like support group where we all get together and talk about faith. Going back to music, my dad is a musician. He's a drummer. Did drums in my church for a long time. So me and my little brother grew up going to a lot of those events with them, hanging out, being in the church, which was really cool.
That's awesome. It's great when your parents kind of bring you up and you get to kind of see what they're doing, and then here you are now trying
Mhm.
to go on your own faith journey, which is awesome. Do you have a favorite Bible verse or passage in particular?
Yes, I have a few actually. My one that's really been with me the last week or so is 1 Corinthians 14:33. This is NLT version. For God is not a God of disorder, but of peace, as in all the meetings of God's people. I know for me, like starting college, we're in like a changeover of our government. It's just been really helpful to ground to know that God is a God of peace and God is going to get us through whatever happens in life. And in such a big transition of change in college, it's just really helped ground me that God is a God of peace. And another one that's really stuck with me throughout my journey of being a Christian is Ephesians 4:1. Therefore, I, a prisoner for the Lord, beg you to live a life worthy of your calling, for you have been called by God. And this one really just reminds me in those moments where I may be struggling with, the typical, especially in college, there's so many distractions, there's a lot of going out, there's a lot of distractions on work. It's really helped me remember that I was called for something more than this world. And it really just helps me to be focused in on my faith and reminds me that I'm worth more than just what I am on the outside. God has a calling for me to do something, to serve him, to help show the love that he has for others. And that's really helped to just remind me what my purpose is. And I'm gonna do my favorite verse of all time, Proverbs 3:5-6. Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways submit to him, and he will make your path straight. And this one is one I grew up with. My mom loves this verse and has always said it to me, like on and off throughout the years, but it never really stuck out to me until about a year ago. I was sitting in a sermon at my church and he was talking about this verse, and it really had stuck out to me. I was like, oh, this is one my mom's always told me. And I really hadn't thought about it until I was sitting there. And I remember taking so many notes and really it struck with me. And then the next day, I was driving home from school with my brother and I was driving behind this car and I looked at it and the license plate was Prov 356. And it was the craziest sign. Like, I don't often get crazy signs from God, but that was just the craziest sign I've ever had in my life. That, like, God was telling me something with this. There's just no chance that driving on the Beltway, that car was there out of random. God put that there to remind me. And since then, I've really just sat on this verse so often and just remind me like I don't understand always what's going on, and God's gonna have a plan for it. And if I just continue to submit my life to him, God has a plan for getting me where I need to go. And he's gonna put me in a place where I need to be as long as I continue to follow him. So that one has really just been my favorite verse of all time ever since that.
Yeah, those are all three very good verses. It's so funny that, of course, in the Beltway, where you could be behind literally any car in the world, the car in front of you is Prov 356. So I think that absolutely was meant to be, you
It
know.
was really just insane that it was sticking out to me. And then the next day, like I went to school far away, like near DC. I drove that Beltway every single day. And the next day, it's in front of me, and I was like, I literally looked at my brother and I was like, Joshua, this is insane. And he hadn't made it to church that week, so he was so confused. But it really made me stop and think about where God is in my life.
Yeah, because you probably never drive behind the same car on the Beltway twice.
Hmm.
But yeah, but and the content of the verse itself, that's one of my favorite ones too. Trusting in the Lord and leaning not on your own understanding. That's something that's obviously easier said than done because you think you're so great and you know what you're doing, you know the plans that God has for you, but then you know He changes them up and it's not what you think. But trusting in Him makes it easier, even though it may require us to kind of give up a little bit of our own pride, our own self-image, but trusting that God knows the plans He has for us. He knows everything that we will go through in life. So it's just up to us to trust in Him.
Absolutely.
So kind of heading in the home stretch here, why do you love Jesus?
That's a good question. Put me on the spot. Um, I think the reason why I love Jesus is just I know that he's there for me. Like through trials and tribulations, God is still going to be able to be there for me. He's never going to leave my side. I have struggled with anxiety for pretty much my entire life, and being grounded in God and Jesus and his word has really helped me be able to ground myself during those hard times. And just the peace that comes with being a follower of God, a follower of Jesus, and just being able to have his word with me all the time and know that he's still going to love me and that he's willing to do as much as sacrifice his life for me. Like, I don't know. We say we would for people, but God went and he did that. Jesus went and he sacrificed himself for me. And to know that he's going to be there for me through everything and he's able to ground me in those tough moments, really just there is no greater love than all of that.
100%. The doubt and anxiety seems to be an overlaying theme here. We've talked about a lot, and trust, because they're all kind of connected in a way. You think you can't do it, you're anxious that you can't do it, but how do you solve those things? But trusting in God. And so I
Mhm.
think it's, and you're right. It's anxiety is I deal with anxiety myself, and I think it's something that a lot of people go through, but it's how you approach it and how you trust in God, and that's why having Jesus alongside you really helps. It's the difference, in my opinion, I'd say. All right, so kind of wrap things up here, Faith. You've obviously been in raised in the church, been a part of the church your whole life. What might you say to someone who may have never experienced Christ, may never not have been raised up in the church, or maybe they have, but as time went on, they've kind of drifted away? What might you say to them?
I would say to someone who is in that situation, first of all, like if you are the one who's struggling, like I feel you. I've been there, a lot of us have. Um, I encourage you to just try to add it to your daily life in small moments and just recognize the small things in life. I think that's really where I started because the big things felt so out of control, looking to God and looking at the small things and be like, okay, I may have had a really, really hard day today, but the sunset was really pretty. That's God. That's God. Or I may be really, really behind on work, but I have this teacher who was understanding to me. I think like thanking God for that. And I'd really also encourage people who are struggling. I know a lot of people who like struggle with faith because I feel like they have to wait to come to God for their good. A quote that I heard one time is the church is not a museum for good people, it is a hospital for the broken. Like that's the great thing about God is God doesn't want you because you're perfect. He wants you because of who you are. And I really just encourage anyone who's unsure, just to try. Like, take a chance with it. I took a chance with taking it more seriously. And I'm not gonna say it worked the first time. I'm not gonna say there's this whole the first time I tried it was transformation, but just keep trying. And I promise you, God will like you're gonna get there. And it's so worth pushing through all the hardships and the tribulations to have that relationship with God. It really is worth it. And He loves you the way that you are. So I really just encourage you to keep trying.
Do you think it was worth it taking that leap of faith?
Oh, absolutely. It for sure was. Like I said, just decided it took me a few tries, it took me some time in my life to keep trying to be serious and then falling off, but at the end of the day, it's been so worth it. I feel so grounded that I have God with me each day, and I feel so thankful that I like kept trying and pushing through to have this relationship because at the end of the day, it's always a push, but it's every single time it is so worth it.
Taking that first leap of faith, you said it earlier, starting is always the hardest thing. But,
Mhm.
and you're a test to this. Once you take that first leap, the rest is history. God is with you and He's alongside you. But you got to take that first step, which is something that's, not as not easy as we talked about, but it's worth it. And I'm sure people are going to be, I hope people are inspired by your story and saying, hey, I was unsure about what would happen when I started, putting a little more attention to my faith, and now look at me. So that's awesome. I really appreciate you coming on and sharing your story. Thanks so much, Faith. Hopefully we can have you back soon.
Thanks, Danny. I really appreciate you reaching out with us. This is really cool. I really appreciate this.